What's going on, everybody? I'm Keith, host of Just Our Thoughts with the Fellas, where 4 to 5 of my brothers give their perspective on national as well as local news. We touch on some trending hot topics as well as culturally relevant news. We also get a chance to dive into some deep core conversations. Check us out live every other Monday at 7 p.m. You can find us on Just Our Thoughts on YouTube live, as well as Just Our Thoughts fan page on Facebook. Also, please don't forget to follow us on IG, JOT with the Fellas.
What up?
What up, fellas?
What's up?
What's going on?
What's the deal?
Monday, beginning of the week.
Sir.
What y'all got? What's happening?
Yeah. Hey, well, check it out, man. We got a very, very special show tonight with a special guest, Dr. Kia Everett, who's going to be joining us, mental health therapist. So we got a very special show tonight. But before we do that, because that conversation is probably going to go very, very heavy.
Mm-hmm.
So before we get started, man, we're going to do a quick icebreaker, man, just to kind of lighten the load a little bit, bring a smile to our face, a little laugh, something like that. All right.
Yeah.
So here we go, man. It's going to tie right into our show tonight. So we're
What's
going
up,
to be
Ange?
talking about. Hey, Ange. So we're going to be
What's going
talking
on,
about
Tom?
some grief counseling tonight. All right. Here we go, fellas. Can you give me the name of 3 entertainers, man? 3 entertainers that have made an impact in our world and who has made major contributions in our world today, man, that have just gone on to glory, man, to a point where we say to ourselves, wow, this brother or this sister left this world too early. What you got? Who's your 3? And you know what? Give me 3. And then as Ward would say, give me an honorable mention. Give me an honorable mention.
He be stupid. He be stupid.
You know when you sent that to us, I thought about it, and it's like 2 of mine actually tied together and are mainly for the same reason.
Okay.
Two comedians, Richard Pryor
Mm.
and Red Fox.
Okay.
I mean, they showed us that you can push the envelope, you can, go for that laugh and be serious, dead serious at the same time. I mean, it was like they left that impact to me, to where it's like, you can be sarcastic and still be that lighthearted dude to everybody.
Right.
You know what I mean? And
You're
then
very
the other,
sarcastic too, Ward.
I know that's kind of where I get it from. I understand. That's my bad. And then the other would be like a Michael Jackson, because I mean the boy was bad. He his childhood was stolen from him, and with him just being genuine as he was, a lot of us seen it that's all he was. So he just wanted to recapture his childhood, and he didn't care what nobody thought of him. And I like that about Michael, man. He was a bad man. Yeah. He had some good music, and he just lived his life the way he wanted to.
Right.
Yeah. You know what? I think I might. I got 2 off top. I got 2. One I think of is Marvin Gaye. I remember sitting in back in 1984. I think when I heard it, I was sitting in the car, in my mom's car, and I heard it on the radio. And I didn't know too much about.
Enough is he froze up.
Yeah, he froze up.
He froze up mid
sentence.
You froze up mid sentence. Enough. You want me to hop in while he's
Yeah, go ahead, hop in, KD.
While he's warming up a little bit. I had a short time to kind of contemplate on the 3 that I would nominate as important trailblazers. So I thought about the first one I thought about was Chadwick Boseman. I really feel like he was definitely taken from us too soon.
Yes.
A brilliant actor, could really morph into any role that you could actually give him and perform to, you know, to an award-winning performance on stage. I mean, he was just an awesome actor. And I don't know if I can even watch Black Panther Wakanda Forever when that comes back out. I don't know how they're going to do it without him, but I mean, that void that he left, you know, on that set is having issues trying to even film a part 2 to that Black Panther. But I think that dude was just, you know, awesome in his acting skills and his performance. I brought up Chadwick Boseman, INF. I don't know if you might have had him. So yeah, I definitely think he was taken far too soon from us. Another one that I guess I would consider, you only was thinking about those that had passed on and to glory, EB.
Yeah, but I mean, if you think there's another one you want to add, go ahead.
Well, Cicely Tyson, she comes to mind. I think she was an important actress that, you know, her resume just spanned decades. Great actress, all the way up and very active in acting until her demise. I mean, she was something special, from Hoodlum, you know, to the many various roles that she had through the course of her life. I mean, she was dynamic and still, like I said, acting until a very late age in life. So Chadwick and Cicely, and then another one would be the woman that we call the voice, would be Whitney.
Whitney
you
was
know,
one of mine.
Oh, okay.
No, but go ahead.
Yeah, nobody could really, you know, you do a versus with Whitney, you losing.
Oh my gosh. Yo,
All
Whitney's
right.
voice was crazy. And you're right when you call her the voice. That's it. That's all you
The
have to say is
voice.
the voice.
The voice. Yep. And
Yeah.
everybody knows who that is.
And
Yeah,
and really embarking on an acting career as well. You know, she not only was she a songstress, but you know, I think her acting career was budding too. But she was important because I mean, she broke a lot of grounds with that voice, that performance. You know, I missed the caliber of songstress that she was. But that would be my 3, EB.
I'm gonna go just for time's sake. I'm gonna go with mine was Marvin Gaye, and my next one was Kobe. Did you say Kobe? Yeah. So for me, I thought Kobe's career was actually just launching after basketball.
I agree.
The endeavors that he was getting himself into and mentoring other people, you know, not just on the basketball court, but outside of the outside the arena. You know, I thought Kobe was about to take that thing to a whole nother realm, you know, in terms of, you know, who he is, you know, as a person, you know, his authenticity, his transparency, you know, his mistakes and everything. So, you know, those are my 2. Those are my 2.
Oh, got you. And you know what? Everybody said all of my 3 except one. The first one I was going to mention, Ward, you mentioned him already, which was Richard Pryor. Richard Pryor, I think that he changed the game, man, and in comedy, man, from stand up to movies, man, to TV shows, man. I can remember, man, sneaking and listening to those 33-inch vinyl albums, man. On the record player, man.
Or 8-track.
Yeah, 8-track too, man. You know, some of those albums got scratched, and you know, the family probably didn't know how it got scratched, but it was probably from me, from sneaking and listening to him.
Right.
You know? Hey, listen, Richard Pryor was the guy who taught me how to cuss, man.
You ain't the only one.
Oh man.
Yeah. For the interest of time, the next 2, I got to go with Christopher Wallace, Biggie Smalls, man. Y'all know I'm a big Biggie fan. I think that
right.
He left a legacy, man. He could rhyme, he could drop it, man. Somebody's phone there. Number 3, you said him already, Ward. Michael Jackson, man. So that dude, man, unstoppable. And if you just said my other guy, man, Kobe Bryant, man. Marking the legacy. Those are my 3 in my honorable mention.
So we, you know, it's good, man. Kobe was a beast, man. All of them, you know, left an impact, a lasting impression on us. For everyone that's joining us tonight, thank you for joining us. Just Our Thoughts with the Fellas. Here we talk about national and local news. We talk about trending topics. We touch on current events, culturally relevant topics, and we have core conversations. On tonight, though, we have a guest. Dr. Kia Everett, who will be joining us talking about grief. We titled this Grief, the Last Act of Love. And, during this time, we wanted to have a certain conversation about grief. And, we wanted to bring an expert in, and Dr. Kia, who will be joining us. Dr. Kia, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you? Thanks so much for having me.
It's good to have you, Dr. Kia. It is so good to have you. When we had this conversation, grief is just so important. It's an emotion, that often many, a lot of us, most of us, don't know how to deal with. We don't know how to strategize to get us to another place, a healthy place. So we certainly wanted to have this conversation about grief. So Dr. Kia, if you don't mind, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? If you don't mind, we appreciate it.
Absolutely. So I'm Dr. Kia Everett. I am the founder and CEO of Finding Your Way, which is the first mental health urgent care center in the Mid-Atlantic region. We are now 6 years old. We'll be 6 years old in December. And I've been in the field of mental health now for over 25 years. So I have done a lot of grief work and mental health work. And so, that's basically me in a nutshell.
Cool. Thanks for having us. And thanks for being on. Dr. Kia, as we talk about, grief, one of the things that we commonly said was during this time of the year, leading into the holidays. I remember my pastor had mentioned that during this time, it's something about God, just taking people during this time frame, and what do you think it is around this time frame where God decides to take people? In addition to that, coming out of COVID, people losing so many people, so many loved ones, so many family members. We wanted to bring you on to just get your thoughts about that, about this time frame, and about coming out of COVID. Where it's been such a tremendous loss.
So to answer the first part of your question, I literally just said that to someone today because we were talking about 3 deaths that we knew of within the last couple of weeks. And that was the first thing I said to her. This time of year is a heavy time of year for loss. I don't know, of course, we don't know why.
Right.
That's just the pattern that, around this time of year, you hear of a lot of losses. Now, for the second part of your question, coming out of COVID or even in COVID, as we know, COVID, there were a lot of losses, whether that be death related or just losses associated with people losing their jobs, losing their homes, losing, people that are used to being relational. They lost that ability to have relationships. And so, if you remember last year, this time, we were advised not to even have Thanksgiving dinner, not to have Christmas dinner. So all of those things were major, for exacerbating people's grief, especially if they were already grieving because of a loss of a loved one.
Right. So is there a I was kind of just thinking of loss and thinking of grief. Is there a difference between grief and mourning?
So there is a difference. Mourning is usually what we consider the process right after the loss. So, a person is in the mourning process right after the loss. The grief is the basically, if you will, the best way to describe it is the process after everything is over. So
Gotcha.
the mourning is, we find out about the loss, and we're going through basically the motions, because with any loss, you have to adjust. You have to adjust to a new one. So that would be your initial mourning process.
Gotcha.
But then the process where you're going through the different stages of loss, which would be, your acceptance, your denial, your anger, in all of those different stages, that's the grief process. Okay. And that process could take a lifetime, to just be honest with you.
So my last question, then the fellas, y'all could roll out. So speaking of, you had spoke of the 5 stages of grief, and speaking of those, can you talk to us about the uniqueness to the individual when it comes to the 5 stages of grief? I know, I read somewhere that, at some stage, it's supposed to take a year, and oftentimes it takes much longer than that, in a certain stage. If you could talk to us about the uniqueness and the 5 stages.
So first of all, it taking a year is false. Okay. Everybody's process is different. Everybody grieves differently. Some people don't even start grieving until a year. Some people don't even one of the first stage of grief is shock. So a person has to get through the shock of whatever the loss is before they can even start grieving. Think about it. When we first heard about COVID, many of us lived in denial. For the first
You're there. We just zoomed in on you. That's all.
Many of us lived in denial for the first 6 months of this thing, and once we started accepting that, okay, this is a real thing, we got to get serious about this thing. People are losing their lives. If you recall, when we first heard about COVID, a lot of people were saying it was a hoax, right? You got to go through all of that before you can even really, really get into the crux of the grief process. Then you have the disbelief. I don't believe that this happened. Is this a dream? Is somebody going to pinch me and wake me up? You have the denial, where you're denying that this actually happened. Then a person can go through the bargaining process. Now, it's not actually happening in any order, but a person can go through the bargaining process. If I had been there, if I had done this, if I wouldn't have went, if they had a car accident, if I wouldn't have went to the right and I would have turned left. So, you have all of that. People go through guilt and go through anger and depression. And then is when you have, after all of that is when you can start to accept it and possibly start to rebuild and put back the pieces. So the average person is not going to do all that in a year. Right?
Some
people grieve for years. And that's part of the misnomer, because, people will be told, well, it was 10 years ago. You should be over that. No. Depending on what the loss was, the significance of the loss, who the person was, or what the situation or the mitigating circumstances, some people don't even start grieving right away.
Yeah, because I kind of went through that with my father. It was like, I really didn't want to acknowledge the fact that, we knew we were going to lose him. So I kind of distanced myself through the whole thing. You can't hear?
No,
can you hear me?
She can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Now, I can hear you, Ward.
Okay. Well, I mean, it was like, I kind of distanced myself through the situation, but the 30 plus years later, I still miss the hell out of my dad. So it's like, for me, the grief is still ongoing after even 30 plus years.
Yeah.
Can Dr. Kia can you hear Dr. Kia?
I can't hear him.
Can you hear us?
Can you hear
me?
Me?
You guys, but I can't hear Ward.
Can you hear us? Can you hear me?
Well, maybe that's Dad telling them not to even hear it.
Well, Dr.
Like, you need to let them know that.
Dr. Kia, Ward was just talking about how he lost his father, and really through that process of losing his father, he began to become a little bit distant from the situation, kind of detach. And that's what a lot of us tend to do. Like, when we know that we might lose a loved one, some of us may detach ourselves from being around the loved one in their last few moments of life, because, we just don't know how to deal with it, or what to say, or how to really respond, or come to grips with the fact that, maybe in the next day or the next hour, we might lose that person. So sometimes it seems like it's natural for us to disassociate or detach ourselves as a form of a mechanism to help us cope with the grief. What's your response to that?
So that is definitely a normal response, especially that's almost like a fight flight type of response. Is I have to protect myself. I want to kind of protect myself so I don't have the saying goodbye so hard, and so you kind of close yourself off. You kind of distance yourself so that when that moment comes, it's not, in your mind, you feel like it's not as hard. It won't be as difficult. So you've already made up in your mind that this is going to happen, and let me start preparing myself now.
Right.
I've never personally experienced that, so I can't say whether that makes it easier. But from what I understand, that doesn't necessarily make it easier. That just gets you, through the process.
Yeah, because it got me through the process, but once it happened, it was hard.
You still can't hear? Wow.
Got you. Dr. Kia, real quick, in preparation for this show, I had a few conversations with a few friends and family members as we was discussing the show. And my question to you is...
I can't hear it either.
Really?
Oh, my.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, and I can hear Kev, but I cannot hear Eric or Ward.
All right, well, I'm gonna go ahead and say this, and then maybe one of the fellas can go ahead and repeat.
We'll translate it for you, Dr. Kia.
Yeah. Let's translate.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Hey, Dr. Kia. So what I was saying was, I had a conversation with a few family members and friends prior to the show, and we were discussing how in this generation that we're living in now, several of us are preparing, and we're approaching retirement, like within the next 5 to 12 years, right? And the generation from the old school, and when I say the old school, I'm talking about our parents and our grandparents, right? They've done things differently, effectively, and in order. But now, with technology and social media, a lot of things are done differently. So the question is, what advice could you give to someone who is a caregiver, right? Who is taking care of not only one loved one, but two loved ones at this time where they feel that they're alone and
Okay.
they're lacking support from others.
Mhm. Yeah. So Eric, it was pretty lengthy, but in a
Sum
nutshell,
it up. Sum it up, Kaden.
in a nutshell, it sounds like many times when we are caring for loved ones that are in their last stages of living, it can become very difficult on the caregiver to have that responsibility of caring for that loved one, either a mother, father, who a spouse in their last moments. So what advice do you have to caregivers, to people, because with Black families, we really don't do hospice or nursing homes, things of that nature. Some of us do, but in generality, a lot of us, we keep our loved ones at home and we try to rotate and things like that. But there are some families that don't have the support that they need. And there can be resentment and other feelings that might build up with that caregiver that's caring for the loved one that's about to die. What advice do you have for the caregiver who feels alone, who's struggling, who is day to day and hands on?
Right.
What advice do you have for them, not just in those latter stages of caring for that loved one, but also when their job of caring for that loved one is now over?
I thought I was
So
lengthy.
that's an excellent question.
Yeah, right.
The first thing is
Just trying to make sense. I'm sorry, Dr. K. I was trying to make sense of EB's.
Thank you, Professor
No,
Kevin.
that's excellent.
You did a great
So,
job,
the
brother.
first
All
thing
right.
is,
He said
Don't
yours
kill,
was long-winded.
don't kill the messenger, brother.
self-care is paramount, especially when you are a caregiver. Um, it's and when you're dealing with caring for a loved one that's in their
Thank you,
final
Donnie.
stages, you will have to get a break. If it's nothing more than time away to take a walk, to go to the store, whatever the case may be. Because watching somebody, going through the dying process is very, very difficult. So self-care is paramount. You have to ask for help. And even though your loved one is at home, whatever you're offered, take it. So nursing care, wound care, whatever you're offered, chaplaincy. Because here's the thing, every time somebody is there, that's a moment that you get to steal away.
Yeah.
Okay. And a lot of times as you mentioned, in Black families, we grew up, what goes on here stays here. And it's that pride rises up. We don't want people to see certain things. No, when you are in that position, every moment that someone offers to help, take it. If there's nothing more than they're coming to just sit with the loved one, take it. Because again, that's a moment that you get to walk away.
Yeah.
That's a moment that if it's nothing but 30 minutes and you get to go and watch a sitcom and get some laughter in, or whatever the case may be, take it. Now, after the loved one passes, yes, your life is going to transition because that's all you know. And so again, as I said earlier, it's adjusting to a new norm. So here's the thing. For you, you're going to feel the loss of the loved one, but you're also going to feel an emptiness because what you were used to doing, you no longer have to do. So it's like, okay, what do I do now with my time? So you have a double loss, if that makes sense.
Good point.
Dr. Key, I got a question. And I'm gonna read Mark Boyd's, my brother Mark Boyd's question. he doesn't know if this was covered yet, and I was actually going to touch on this, but can you speak on how the grief cycle can reverse, repeat, and even skip the traditional steps when you talk about denial, anger, bargaining, and all of the steps, all the different steps, and when it comes to grief, if you could touch on that.
Absolutely. So the best way to explain that, I'll use myself for example. So, when I was getting married, my husband and I, we've been married 24 years. And when I was getting married, my father actually died literally 2 weeks before we got married.
Mm-hmm.
So my fitting, my final fitting was on the same day of my father's funeral. And I thought that I had kind of gone through the grief process. And so life went on. I was in grad school, getting married, became a mom, went through life, right? Started pastoring, started working. And about 3 years ago, now mind you, I'm talking 21 years later.
Right.
About 3 years ago, on Father's Day, I found myself very lethargic, very depressed, and this had never happened to me before. And I didn't know why. And so I just stayed in the bed, and I'm saying, what is wrong with me? I couldn't figure it out. And the next day, I made an appointment to see my therapist because it was just so strange.
Right.
I didn't know what was going on.
Right.
And as soon as I told her, she said, you're going through grief. And I'm like, for what? Over what? I didn't lose anybody. Right. And she said, you're finally at a place where you can grieve your father. My kids were older. I had transitioned in terms of my ministry. And a lot of the things that just kind of like kept me working in my mind on 1,000 were kind of calming down. So because of that grief on Father's Day hit me, and because it hit me in a way that I wasn't expecting, I didn't know what it was. Now this is 21 years later.
Wow.
Yeah. And what she explained to me is because when my father passed, I was in grad school, getting married, and then once I got married, my husband had a daughter, so I immediately became a parent. Life just happened. I didn't have time to go through the grief process.
Right.
And so now that all of that was over, now was my grief process. So I'm thinking 21 years later though, are you serious? But I literally was crying. I was looking at his pictures, and I was doing all of the things that people normally would do when a person first dies. So to answer your question, this is why I said grief can take a lifetime. And no, there's no traditional, you do it and that's over. Grief comes in waves. So, today you could be fine and you can go in the store and hear a song and it reminds you.
Right.
Or you can see somebody that looks like the person that you lost.
Right.
And have a meltdown. Or
I see that every day.
Grief comes in waves, and there's no magical way.
No rhyme, no reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got go ahead, Keith.
No, I'm just saying it just that, what Dr. Kia is referencing is that goes against the old adage that time heals. I've heard people, on many occasions just say time will heal. And, I don't know if time heals, and if it's that, I don't know, I think other things put in place, can heal, but I don't know if time is the thing that should heal, if that makes sense.
I mean, it could.
So like time allows you to process, and time allows you to come to acceptance.
Yeah.
But your healing is the bottom line is I tell everybody your process is your process. And that's the one thing that belongs to you. So your process is going to look different than Ward's process. Ward's process is going to look different than Eric's process.
Right.
And so that's the one thing that belongs to you that nobody else can share. And even if Ward lost his father and then Eric a week later lost his father, the worst thing you can say is, I know what you're going through, or I know how you feel. Because even though both people have lost their fathers, their relationships are different.
Absolutely.
The situations are different.
Absolutely.
And you don't know how I feel.
Right.
Now, you can empathize with me because you know what it's like to lose a parent, but you don't know how I feel.
Because that's my dad.
Because that's my dad.
Right. And it sounds like that grief process is unique to every individual. It's not a cookie cutter approach that you have to take. And, time heals all wounds, but it's really what you do with that time that matters. If you really don't come to grips with the fact that I need to grieve and I need to deal and learn these steps, then you're always going to kind of be stuck in a vicious cycle of not fully coming to acceptance that you need. I got a question for you, Dr. Kia. Earlier we were talking about how it seems like death has a quota, around this time of the season. Like police are stopping people on the highway when it gets to near the end of the year. They're trying to get a quota in place. It seems like death has a quota before the year is out. You start seeing a rash of expected and unexpected death that happens. But specifically around this time of the season where you do lose a lot of loved ones around the holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's. What can you say to individuals that have lost loved ones and the holiday really triggers and brings back memories that may be painful, and it's hard for me to cope and manage with these painful, stressful feelings around the holiday season because of the memories that they might evoke? What do you say to the individual that's dealing with, the holidays and managing their emotions around the loss of a loved one during this time of the year?
So what I tell everybody that comes to me with that same concern is, you do what you feel you can do. And the reason I get that a lot is because, especially with all of the dinners and the celebratory events, the family functions, people oftentimes feel obligated, but then they're in conflict because, especially if it's someone that they were close to, I hear, well, it's just not the same because such and such is not there. And so what I advise people, you have to know what your tolerance level is. You have to know what you can and cannot do. And if it's too much, don't go. You don't owe anybody an explanation as to what you can and cannot handle. Okay. And if especially in that first cycle, because your first cycle after a loss is the hardest. So, if you've lost a parent, if you've lost a grandparent or someone you're very close to, and you just feel like you just can't do it, it's taking everything in you to just be able to survive, don't go. Don't go. If it's better for you to have a close friend and the two of you, or your immediate family, and you guys do something small, that's what you do. Whatever you feel comfortable doing to get yourself through the holidays is what you do. And you don't owe anybody an explanation. Now you're going to get questions like, well, why you can't come, and what's wrong, and why you breaking the tradition. You don't owe explanations for that, because it's about you, and it's about your healing process, and it's about, what you feel comfortable. And so sitting around the table. And family gatherings, a lot of times, that's what they do. Oh, when Johnny used to do X, if you don't feel like you can handle that, don't do it.
Yeah.
Or if you go, I've also shared with people, if you go, know when to excuse yourself. That's okay too.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Okay.
It's okay to eat and run.
Yeah.
We're taught in our culture,
Right.
it's bad etiquette to eat and run. No.
Right.
Yeah. It's okay to eat and run.
It's okay to eat and run in this case.
I wanted to read. Sheree Huff said that it's hard dealing with the new norm. When
Put it up for us.
When we were referencing, I just wanted to read it. When we were referencing the 5 stages, Kubler's 5 stages. I also wanted to read Eric Coleman's. When you're the oldest out of your siblings and you had to be the one to pull the plug on your father, it's the worst thing in the world. You never get over that. And I wanted to make sure my sisters didn't go through that. I didn't do anything without their consent, being there to watch that. You never get over it. It doesn't get any better. You have your bad days, and then you have your really bad days. Me and my pops was very close.
Wow. Nice.
Absolutely.
And
that's
So
Eric basically explained, you don't really get over it. And that's the worst thing you can say to somebody is, get over it. It's been such and such a time. Get over it. You did what you had to do. Get over it. Let it go. No. The other thing with grief, and I share this all the time, when you're going to comfort somebody that's grieving, it's okay not to say anything. We feel like we always have to say something. We got to make them feel better. There is nothing, if a person loses a parent, a spouse, a child, a grandparent, nothing you say is going to make them feel better. So don't feel like you have to say something.
Right.
Sometimes just your presence. If that's your friend, your coworker, whatever. Just sometimes just being there, letting them know that you got them.
Yeah,
that's right.
Is all you need. Because when you're grabbing for things to say, you're grasping for, you're gonna say the wrong thing. And I tell people all the time, it's better to just sit, hold the person, sit next to them. I know for men, it's not. It may not be cool to do all of the touchy feely kind of stuff. But for women, hug them, let them know you're going to be there. But you don't have to say anything.
Yeah. Go over to the house and get a brother a shape up and vacuum it. Listen, take something over there to eat, just to show just to show your presence
get people
there.
Out the house that has been, that's in that grief process, but they can't seem to get up and get moving. Go over there, get them out the house.
Right.
Take them to lunch, take them to dinner, or sometimes just sit and talk with them, because the worst thing you can do is isolate them. And because remember, when people are grieving, for them, for a period of time, life has stopped, and everybody else's life continues to move on.
It's still moving.
So they're looking at everybody else live this life that before this death or this loss occurred, for them was normal. And so, the thing is, we want to try to keep them in as close to normalcy as possible, and to let them know, I get it. My life, I'm not experiencing what you're experiencing, but I'm not forgetting that you're experiencing this.
Yeah.
There goes my question.
Does that make sense? Now, I saw a question.
Well, Ward, this was something similar to what Ward wanted to. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ward.
Yeah. From our good friend Tracy, she wants to know, how does one deal with people close to you to not understanding that you're still grieving? And similar to my question was, how do we, is there any advice you could give to us to maybe comfort or how to deal with someone who is grieving, and that we're not going through the process, but they are. How do we deal with them? How do we possibly comfort them without going through over the boundaries?
I don't think she could still hear him.
I don't think so either. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dr.
Oh yeah, y'all gonna have to.
Ward, you and I have the same mic, so I don't think she's going to be able to hear us tonight.
Yeah. All right, now if you want to break down Ward's question.
Ward's question was it was kind of Ward's question similar to how you were following up. Dr. Everett, how does one deal with people close to you not understanding that you're still grieving? And how do you continue to grieve? I see, Sheree Huff, she thought that she just lost her mom, I want to say 2 months ago. It's crazy you say that, because I was so angry with people when my mom passed, because they continue to live. If you could touch on that for us, Dr. Kia.
Okay. So how do you deal with people that are close to you that don't understand that you're still grieving? Leave them where they're at, because again, when you're grieving, that takes every bit of your energy. That takes.
What does that look like when you say leave them where they at?
You have to, first of all, one thing about people is they want you to, how can I say, when people don't know how to deal with where you are, they want you to hurry up and get through your process. Okay. And sometimes when you're hurting, what you're going through is difficult for them because it's triggering something for them. And depending on the relationship that the two of you had, if you stay in your process too long, it means that they now have to either find a way to be there for you and not get anything in return, or they have to now come up with a new norm. So it's easier to tell you, get over, or we need to go through this process. We got to get through this, whatever. And so they don't get to do that. They don't get to dictate that. Okay. And sometimes, here's the thing. Whenever you're going through a tragedy, whenever you're going through a loss, whenever you're in grief, that's when you find out who your real people are.
That's a good point, right?
So that saying is true, huh?
Oh, yeah. It really is true. And that's when you find out who really has your back, because the people that really have your back are going to ride the wave with you. And so really, I hate to be the bearer of bad news. You're going to grieve with the person you lost, and then you're going to grieve the people that has to fall off. Because again, you don't owe an explanation. And you have to go through your process in order for you to be healthy. And they don't have to understand it. I'm going to tell you this. If people have not gone through what you've gone through, they won't understand it. That's like a foreign language to them. So if they've never lost a parent, if they've never lost somebody that they've really been close to, if they've never lost a job, if they've never, if they haven't had any major health issues that cause them to have to redirect their lifestyle or whatever, they're not going to understand. So don't even expect them to understand, and don't waste your energy trying to explain it, because you need your energy to get through what you're trying to get through. That answers that part of the question.
Okay.
The other part of the question, well, I hope it answered.
You good.
The other part of the question was, can you refresh my memory?
It was Sheree Huff had mentioned that she lost her mom a couple months ago, and she mentioned that she was just so angry with people
Right.
when her
Okay.
mom passed away because they continue
To
to
live.
to keep living.
Right.
You know?
So that's a normal response. And so what happens is when somebody first passes away, when somebody first dies, everybody flocks to the person that's grieving, the person, the
That's
family.
closest, yeah.
And for that first week, everybody's there. But once the funeral services are over,
They're gone.
then everybody disappears.
Yep.
But what people fail to realize is the real work hasn't started until the services are over. And so again, this person is living in a fog, right? I just lost my mom, but now people are not sensitive to know that the last thing she wants to see is you posting all of your family pictures front and center with you and your mom. The last thing she wants to do is every conversation you're talking about you and your mom. She knows that you haven't lost your mom, but if you're going to be there for her, then you have to make a calculated, conscious decision that when you're talking to this young lady, or I'm just going to say anybody that's grieving, that you are not constantly saying, well, me and my mom did this, or me and my dad did this, or who, reference in terms of whoever this person has lost. Because at that point, the person is not really is not able to say you're just living your life. But as this young lady said, it's making them angry because it's like, okay, so why did my mother have to be the one that was taken? Why did my father have to be the one that was taken? And so this is all a part of the sensitivity when you are going to comfort someone that's grieving. That's why I said sometimes silence is the best option.
Right.
Yeah.
I had a question. When people are going through that process, they're oftentimes parents lose their children. They lose some. They lose people. People die young, and they're left with searching for meaning. Do you feel like meaning is part of acceptance, or do you feel like it stands alone? Like, is meaning part of that acceptance stage, or do you feel like the search for meaning, does that stand alone?
So yes, I do think that meaning is a part of their acceptance because the whole thing is you don't want your loved one to die in vain, especially if it's a young person.
Right.
And if they die to gun violence or some type of violence, the whole mission is I don't want their life to be in vain. So I can maybe accept this a little bit better if I can find a purpose and a meaning for this senseless act, if you will. And so that again helps the person that's grieving to find something to channel all of their energy into, as a way of upholding their loved one's legacy.
I got you.
That's right. I got a question for Dr. Kia. EB, Woody, y'all good?
Yeah, I kind of like this.
They didn't just mute it and just.
Hey, I like them.
Drop your question in the chat. So we could, if y'all got something to throw at Dr.
Hey, listen,
Kia.
we may get too long.
I know y'all want us to be muted anyway. I
got some questions, but
it's a group discussion.
Man, y'all stupid.
Throw it in the chat. Yeah. So what? I don't know if you've been keeping your eye on the violence that's been happening over there in Philadelphia, Dr. Kia. Over 470 people so far this year in Philadelphia have been murdered. 60 women have been killed. 137 children under the age of 18 have been shot. A lot of the children over there in Philadelphia are scared to go to school. For Black kids growing up in the hood, this has become a way of life. In many instances, Black kids grow up, accepting the fact that they're going to lose classmates, close friends at an early age by just random gun violence. But a lot of these children are saying that they don't feel safe going back to school. But again, for this to be a normal way of life for Black children to grow up with senseless killing, it just seems to take just throws grief, the whole process of it, out of the window, because murder has become so normalized in the Black community. How do you help young children, because again, there's been 6-year-olds, 8-year-olds, teenagers that have been shot in Philly, some killed, some wounded. How do you help children, younger teenagers, process grief and loss when this has become such a normal part of the Black community, that not only may my life be taken, but it's normal to see many of my friends gunned down before we even reach the 10th or 11th grade. How do you help children process that?
So really what you're describing takes us out of the realm of grief and puts us in a whole nother topic, and that is trauma. Because when children are living in that level of fear and discomfort, it's because of the trauma. It's because they are, just fearful that this is going to happen to me or one of my friends or family members. And it not only with the violence, but I saw a lot of it with when the unrest, and it was, well, am I going to be killed because I'm Black?
Right.
So we have the violence, and then you have the issue, about just being Black. What does that look like? And so that they're not even at a point of grief at this point. They are, just so traumatized that they can't even at this point, what they're living through is PTSD, and just hoping that they make it through the process without being a victim of either what you described, or being a victim of being Black.
Right. Right. Thank you, Dr. Kia.
Dr. Kia, I had a question. For those that's joining us, we have Dr. Kia Everett on. Thanks for hanging out with us and joining us when we talk about Grieve, the last act of love. When there's many situations that come about when we talk about loss, and one of the things that I had a conversation, a couple conversations with people about over the years is, how do I grieve someone that I hadn't had a chance to bring that relationship back? So there's been some abandonment. My dad left when, I was young and we were distant. The relationship wasn't as tight as it could have been. And then they transition, so is there a possibility that the fact that I never had closure, on top of now dealing with this grief, of losing someone that should be dear to me, someone that I love, someone that has my same blood, what does that, if you could talk about that, your thoughts on that?
So that is an excellent scenario, because as a therapist, we see that. I see that a lot. And that's a whole different type of grief, because once a person, is gone and they haven't, those two people haven't brought closure, a lot of times the person that's left feels like, well, they got to take the easy route. They didn't get to confront whatever was going on. They didn't have to deal with whatever is going on or what occurred. And so, before they can even begin to mend those pieces and find closure, I mean, there are activities that we can do. If that person was still alive, what would you do? There are activities that we do, called empty chair and all of those kinds of things. But before we can even get to that part, we have to do therapy for that person to talk about the abandonment and talk about, why was that relationship even in that at that status?
Right.
And so, it's other work that we have to do before they can even
Get to
that. Yeah.
I got you. I got two more. I know Warren EV don't have anything.
Oh man.
Now,
Kenny
listen, we
might
got
have some.
questions, but you can't hear us. So go ahead, man.
Put it in the chat, y'all.
Yeah, my question. Actually, this is Kevin Spratley's question. Forgiveness and acceptance, are a huge part of the grief process. How do you walk someone through that stage? The griever not allowing a parent to move on, live their life.
The griever not allowing a parent to move on.
Their life.
So again, there's no cookie cutter solution, right? Everybody goes through grief differently. It looks different for everybody. Now, if this is a mutual person that was lost, and if I'm understanding the question correctly, maybe one parent or one person is able to move on a little bit, let's say quicker than maybe the other person. That's a part of the process, and you will see that. Okay, you will see, especially if you have two people. One parent was lost. Okay, so you may have. Okay, so with siblings, you have, and let me just say this, especially with the grief process, and maybe I should have said this earlier, but part of the grief process also determined or is depending on where people are spiritually. Okay. So as I mentioned earlier, me being a pastor, I would look at grief different than maybe one of my siblings.
Okay.
I would look at loss different. So it would look totally different for me. And so it's not that I moved on quicker,
right?
But my acceptance and my rebuilding process would look different.
Right.
Okay. Right. And that's what, again, I think, I know that as a people, as a culture, we spend a lot of time trying to get other people to get on board and to understand where we are. If that makes sense.
It does.
Right. If we can drop that process with trying to get other people to get on board and understand where we are, we would be okay. Because if I look at death differently than my siblings, neither process is wrong.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
We're just gonna go through it differently.
Right.
Yeah.
I got something to
So
add
why
to
would
that.
we're already grieving. Why would we spend that time debating who should move on quicker and
Right.
why?
Right. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Ward. Go ahead, Ward.
Does that make
Hey,
sense?
KD, can you
It makes
translate? Can you translate Ward's
it makes
question?
perfect sense.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I just want to add on to that. I just got like a little life experience that might help Kev, because after my
Help
dad
me.
passed,
Help me.
huh?
Nah.
Oh,
No, not
Kevin
you.
Spradley. Okay. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah. After Kevin Spratley, after my dad passed,
Mm.
there was a guy that came around and wanted to date my mother, and my brothers, they really wasn't feeling it. Me and my sister, we really didn't care, and I expressed to the dude, I'm like, look, it doesn't bother me. You just better treat my mother right. And that's all I had to say. That's all the words I had for him. I'm like, my mom is a grown woman. She could do what she wanted to do. If she felt like she wanted to move on, that's her decision.
Mm.
But it was like, for me to help my mother was to accept what she wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, did I see that she was still grieving my father? Yeah, I seen it. But it was like, but because of the way she taught me, life goes on. You really can't, just sit there and wallow in pity.
Right.
You got to accept it and just move on. So I just let it be known, like, look, yeah, I'm cool with it. Just make sure that my mother's okay, because
Right.
if my mother isn't, then we might be grieving somebody else.
Right. Right.
There
Right.
might be a lot of slow singing
Singing
and
and
flower
flower
bringing
bringing,
if
yes.
my burger alarm starts ringing.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh
So,
man.
so Dr. K. Ward just brought up the fact of how, he came into acceptance that when his father died, his mother had to live on and had to date. He came to acceptance with that versus siblings, I believe you said, Ward, that might have had a hard time dealing with it. But, being a protective son, he made it known that, I'm trusting you with caring for her feelings in a way that, you're not going to do anything that is going to, be more traumatic to her.
Right.
Because that's a vulnerable state that any person is in just going through a loss and then having to move on with their life. You want to make sure that your feelings are in the hands of a trusted individual who's not going to take advantage of you in your most vulnerable state. So that was one of the points that Ward had brought up. But, like you said, he came to acceptance with the fact that, and I think some of us might struggle, with, a parent moving on because we're so attached to the father or mother that we lost, that we think that person is going to come in and replace them.
Right.
When maybe that is an important ingredient that the surviving parent needs in order to find some type of closure or healing.
Right.
Yeah.
The other thing with that, and this is a key ingredient, not even with the dating or with parents moving on, but just in the grief process in general. When we have two people or that are in a relationship, those of us that are on the outside, and when I mean outside, I'm talking about the children, the siblings. A lot of times we are looking from the outside in, saying, well, why did they move on so quickly? Why did they do this? Why did they do that? But we don't have any idea what the conversation was between those two people, especially if there was an illness involved. When they set up their afterlife plans, what they said to each other. And so it's important that we recognize they may have had a whole conversation that we don't know anything about.
Exactly.
Right. And when we see the surviving parent or the surviving person doing something, no, we may not like it, but we don't know if they already got their blessing, if they already, like we agreed that whoever was left had permission to go, do whatever.
Right.
We have no idea.
Yeah.
And so we have to remember that as well.
Right.
That when relationships are involved, those two people had conversations that we don't even
that we were not privy to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The
I
other
want
thing
you
I
to
want to
love.
say, because I know we probably don't have that much time. I tell people this all the time, and I used to say it in a joke until I realized, especially our people, and I hate to say it, but I used to say this as a joke until I realized that it's becoming more and more prevalent. The grief process, although it's difficult, is easier when you're not trying to pinch pennies and sell chicken dinners and fish sandwiches to bury your loved one. Right?
Yeah.
As the fact that we all are grieving and we pinch ourselves, we hurt. The fact that we were born, we have 2 dates that are guaranteed.
Right.
A birth date and a death date. We have to prepare for that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yes.
And so what makes that process a lot harder is when the survivors have to do a GoFundMe or they gotta ask people for donations.
Right.
And I'm not talking about when tragedy happened. I'm talking about
when it's time to bury. Right.
We gotta prepare for that. And I used to say in a joke, you can grieve a lot better when you got a couple dollars.
Yeah.
But I realized that that's not really, this is really becoming an issue, especially with our people. We don't prepare for that.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying we have to have these $1 million policies. I'm not saying that.
Right.
I'm saying enough to put our loved ones away.
Yes.
Nicely.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
And you will find that makes your grief process
a lot easier.
So much easier. Because at least this person passed away. I have at least $10,000, $15,000 that I can give them a nice farewell.
Yes.
I don't have to beg. I don't have to
borrow. Right.
I don't have to lose my pride.
Right. Or your house.
Right. I can bury my loved one. Listen, and I'm not even talking about the repast and all that. You don't have to do all that. I'm talking about to put your loved ones away.
Yeah. Well, my mama went to that church. What that church going to do for my mama?
We gotta do nothing. I mean, we gotta step up.
Yeah.
I got,
especially as a culture, especially as and I'm just gonna say, as Black people, we have to do better because you gotta keep your loved one in the refrigerator for 3 weeks while you raise the money.
Yeah. I got one last one while you are on this point, Dr. Kia. Having these type of conversations surrounding death and the preparation for that is very uncomfortable. That's why a lot of Black families, a lot of families period, don't do it. Preparing for the inevitable fact of losing a loved one and planning accordingly, like you were talking about. Eric Coleman had brought up a point early on, one that I'm really connected with. He talked about having to make that end life decision for his father. I was in the same position where my family looked to me to make the decision on if there was enough medical intervention done to say that it's time to let him go, which is a very, very hard decision to make. And sometimes it can be a regrettable situation as well, because you may feel like maybe I acted too soon, or maybe there was something different I could have done. And one of the things that Eric talked about was that, it's the worst thing in the world.
Yeah.
Even though it's a privilege to be trusted with those, and because I'm sure that his father probably trusted Eric, like my grandfather trusted me to make these decisions.
Right.
When I'm battling, for my life, and when you feel the time is right, and when all intervention has been exhausted, you make that decision. Would just speak to that person that has had to make that decision, because out of everyone else, they live with a lot of back and forth, or just regret whether or not they made the right decision. What is it that you can say to that individual, that pressure and that responsibility has been put on to really make that call, concerning the end of medical intervention on a loved one?
So to the person that has had to make that have been placed in those positions to have to make those decisions, if you were the individual that was trusted, just know that given the situation, you made the best decision under the circumstances. You don't have to go back and question and live with regret. If because you were the person that your loved one trusted, they trusted their life in your hands.
Mm-hmm.
And so that in itself was their choice. You were the chosen person. And so you don't have to live with any regret. You don't have to live with, did I make the right decision? You don't have to live with it. You made the decision that you thought was best given the circumstances, the situation, and what you knew about your loved one.
Yeah.
I always ask people, what you know about your loved one, would they want to live like this? And if your answer to that question is no, that's your answer. However, the flip side of that is, again, it's all about preparation. And that's a part of the preparation process. We have power of attorneys, we have medical power of attorneys,
advanced directives,
we have financial power of attorneys. And the thing about power of attorneys, they can be revoked at any time. So, you can give one person a power of attorney, and if you feel like, okay, this person's not going to make this, you can revoke it. A lot of times people don't want to do that because they feel like, oh, I'm signing away. No, you have the right to revoke that at any given time. But that's a part of the planning process. Have those conversations. One of the things, my family, we talk about it. They don't like to talk about it, but we talk about it. That could be dinner conversation.
Yeah.
Especially for me, because I have some health challenges, and I want my family to be prepared. Now,
right.
You got to know who can make those decisions. Now, my husband, I tell him he'll have me here, hanging from a string if he could, right? So he's not the one to make the decision. But I've made it very clear that I'm a very vibrant, happy person. If the prognosis is you got to take care of me and I can't do anything on my own, let me go. I don't want to live like that.
Yes.
My husband's like, I'll take care of you. I don't care. I'm not. All of my kids are of age now. So I've had the conversation with my kids, and we are we're actually working on some things now. So, baby, I love you, but I already know what
he can't do it. He can't do it.
He can't do it. And it's okay because we've had that conversation, and I already know that if it was up to him, they would have me on feeding tubes, catheters, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Look at me.
And that's not what you want.
That's not what
you want.
Right. It's about what you want.
Exactly. And that's why you have to have the conversation, and we can't be afraid of it, because the way I see it, that's the last thing your family gets to do for you. You know? And I told my family, y'all gonna spend some money. That's the last thing y'all get to do. Yeah, y'all gonna spend some money.
Right. Dr. Kia, we appreciate you just taking this time out. I hope this hour and some change is not a billable hour. So we appreciate you just hanging out with us, you know, and having this conversation, heading towards this season, the season of giving, the season, you know, of the holiday season, the new year. You know, it's dates that's cemented in people's minds, you know, of their lost ones. You know, is this something that you can leave people with, you know, some different approaches that they can take, you know, some different strategies that they can use, you know, in terms of not only just, you know, thinking of their loved one, but, you know, how they can celebrate, you know, their loved one, and, you know, shift, you know, possibly shift the mindset, you know, to remember the, you know, the great times that they had with them. You know, is this something that you can leave with us and those that's watching?
Sure. So, a couple things. You can honor your loved one with a favorite color, with their favorite color, maybe a favorite song. If they were a holiday person, what was one of the things that they enjoyed about the holiday? You know, if you do have those family dinners, you can maybe do a structured activity. You know, what does the family that remains, what are their favorite thoughts about that family member? So you can do those kinds of things. You can, you know, in your own way, honor your family member. You can do a scholarship fund. You can do, you know, if you want to adopt a family for Christmas, you could do Thanksgiving basket and honor your loved one that way. So you can do those types of things. The other thing, for the survivor, the one that's grieving, you know, go to grief counseling. I myself, every year I do grief classes. So, you know, get into some grief classes, get into some grief counseling, and, you know, kind of prepare yourself for the holidays.
Thank you, Dr. Kia. Thank you. We appreciate you just joining us, you know, and dropping some knowledge on us, and, you know, putting yourself in a position to, you know, continue to support those that are grieving, you know, and sharing with us, you know, how they can continue to, you know, show a last act of love by, you know, doing those things that you shared with us. So we thank you. We will be certainly talking. If you need, you know, someone to speak with, reach out to Dr. Kia Everett. You can reach out to me, and I can, you know, help you communicate with her, you know, just to get through these times, the tough times, you know, for yourself. So thank you, Dr. Kia, and we appreciate you. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
Thank Dr. Kia.
Yeah, thank Dr. Kia.
Couldn't hear us.
Dr. Kia, Ward and Eve and Eric said thank you.
You can't hear
it.
We appreciate you. Thanks. Fellas, what's good, man?
Hey, man, that was
that was good
conversation. Angela Mitchell, she says great conversation. Kevin says thanks, Doc and fellas. He put Doc first before us. Sheree Wiles, she says thank you all. Please keep me in prayer. This is hard for me. Certainly will. Trey says thank you, Doctor. Thank you, fellas. We appreciate it. Hey, KD, I wanted to see, do you think we should do this often, like just me and you, and just have Ward and EB just?
Hey, that's all right. I'll take a day. I'll take a night off.
Hey, man, what you trying to say, man? Y'all like this not speaking, man? Come on.
I think they would have cut us off.
We want to appreciate everybody for joining us tonight. You could find this in the rest of our conversations. Thanks for joining us, Lynn, on Spotify, on our streaming platforms, as well as Apple Podcast and iHeartRadio, Amazon. You can check all of our other conversations out. And now we appreciate you, man. You are definitely in our thoughts, bro.
Yes, sir.
Definitely in our thoughts, man. So we certainly want to direct you guys to our streaming services and our other conversations.
I just want to say much love to Sheree and Anal.
Yeah.
Yes, much love.
Yeah. Wardy, you up, B?
Yes, sir.
Shopping bags, they way down her arm.
Yo, that's the first time I peeped that. What's up with the toilet scene that was in that intro?
I don't know.
That's the first time I actually peeped that one. But anyway,
break it down.
Man law number 21. Wasted energy. Man shall not waste his energy arguing his opinion. We can discuss it, but not argue it. For in my opinion, it makes us both look foolish. Right, wrong, or indifferent, we are all entitled to have one.
It's taking me a second to process that.
Yeah, yeah. Nah, it's just like, everybody has an opinion about something. It's really not your job to actually change that person's view, to tell him his opinion is wrong or right. But it's just like, we could talk about it like, well, I really don't understand your opinion. Can we elaborate on it? That's one thing. But when you sitting there and get into a full out argument, nah, man, you wrong. Like,
right.
Nah, come on, dog. It's an opinion. I have one. Just like you have an opinion, you have your opinion about the way you feel about it. Right. I feel differently. You know what I mean? And basically just accept somebody's opinion.
So we can go with opinion and not an argument.
Yeah. We can have a discussion, but no arguments about them.
I got you. No argument. So, Ward, I'm gonna hold you to that one, Ward.
Yeah. So when I slip, man, you can just punch me right in the face on that one.
So you like a nice healthy debate? Is what you saying?
No, not a debate. We could discuss it. Right. We can have a nice discussion about it, but not that point to where it's like we starting to raise voices. Now we like, yo, man, you was totally wrong. You catch your feelings about it. Nah, man, it's my opinion. You know what I mean? If just like if I don't like your opinion, hey, just so be it. But I'm not gonna sit there and be like, well, you just wrong. Nah, that's your opinion.
I think
all right.
I think also comes a sense of security too, and who you are, like. That I don't have to prove this to you. Like we won't sit, I don't have to prove what I think and how I feel, your opinion. So I think it decreases and it eliminates a lot of that getting into an argument, because I respect you do got your opinion. I feel strongly about mine. There's no point in me arguing and going back and forth with you because I'm secure in how I feel about it. So that's some dope stuff. That's some dope stuff. Yeah, Trey says, yes, Ward, we can beg to differ. We can beg to differ.
Yes.
What's up, KD? We doing anything, brother?
Just roll.
Ask the professor.
Yo, real quick question, real quick answer. Had a viewer drop something in the inbox. Men are scared of my independence and confidence, which makes it difficult to date and become involved in a relationship. What are your thoughts? Signed by him or she calls herself Miss Making an Assumption. So her assumption is that she believes that men are scared of her independence and her confidence, which is making it very difficult for her to become involved in a relationship.
Can I take a stab at this before we get to Professor?
Yeah. Go ahead, bro.
Stop taking yourself so serious. Stop taking yourself so serious. We get it. You're independent. I often think that when people are independent, they don't have to say it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's the same thing with the sense of security and the sense of confidence. You don't have to say it. You walk in it. And people know what you are without saying it. So, stop taking yourself so serious and really, just, look at it different. Look at it different. What is it, that I may be doing different than what, people are interested in. And if they're not interested in you, just continue to keep it moving. Don't often make it about yourself and not look at yourself at the same time. So sometimes that independent thing, that kind of, I don't want to say it bothers me, but it's like, all right,
it
a lot of
bothers
people
me sometimes.
Yeah, it's like we all are independent.
Hey, Keith, I think it bothers you a little bit.
It bothers me,
but it does bother you. I can tell you.
I'm like, yo,
hey,
all right,
Shakur, you see that water? You see him?
Yeah. But I feel him though.
No, it's you don't have to
on that.
say it though. You don't have to say that you're independent. Like your walk and how you move, just it says
action
and it shows your
speak.
independence.
Yeah, because I feel you, Keith, because that them saying that they're they keep saying they're independent. It sounds like, well, I don't need a man to do this. I don't need a man to do this. I don't need a man. But you want to date, so obviously you do need a man.
Or you want one.
Or you you want one. So all right, go ahead. Not my question.
War was about to
take a slice of the pie.
No.
Take a slice of the pie.
The question is open up there.
EB, you got any thoughts, E?
Nah, I'm good, man. I'm good.
Well, let's take out of the equation that she's openly expressed that I'm independent and I don't need a man. Let's take that out of the equation for a second. And maybe it is, because of the type of person that she is and how she carries herself and, her job, her level of job and her level of education that may make her appear to be, from first glance, someone that might intimidate some brothers. There are some brothers, we can't deny that there are some brothers who are intimidated by a woman that is very successful and very powerful and very moving in the upper echelons of life, career, education, whatever. A lot of men feel like they are limited in their approach. What do I have to offer if I'm not at her type of level? We hear that discussion a lot. We know that there are some men that feel like they have a need to be in control and to dominate. The only thing I could tell this sister is that, taking out the equation that this is something that she is, verbalizing and holding over a brother as a form of leverage or to have an advantage over a brother, taking that out of the equation. I just want to say to her is that, continue to do you, continue to be that boss that you are, continue to move up and grow and develop and be that top earner that you are. If a man sees you that way, as out of their mindset and out of their vision that you are independent or that you might not need the companionship found in a man, that's something that, that's a flaw within that brother, that individual. Maybe there's an issue that they have with their own weaknesses. All right. An issue that they have with their own selves about the type of earner, the type of education that they have, and that they can't really compete to win the time of day with you. That might be something that they personally are dealing with. And then on the other hand, it might be something that's deep rooted in a mother-son relationship that he had growing up, So don't always think that is something that is a flaw within you. If you're not using it as leverage in a relationship, or using it as ammunition. are looking to have relationships with, just be comfortable in your own skin. Continue to do the things that you love to do that have made you successful until you can find or a brother locates you, finds you that you can grow and develop with, and he is not scared about his so-called weaknesses that he might have, where he doesn't, you know, so-called fit up or live up to you know, the type of individual that he thinks you deserve, because you might not be looking for, you know, your options may be open with, you know, he doesn't have to make this amount of money. He doesn't have to be famous or this thing or that thing, you know, until he gets to know the type of individual that you are. Continue to do you and be successful, and allow those individuals, those men that have been, you know, putting that label on you, those are some issues that they have to deal with. All right. So that's all I got.
Yeah, real quick, if I could just say this,
Go ahead.
maybe she could ask, you know, some of the people that she is thinking about dating, or someone that she has dated in the past that she had a good relationship with. Just ask them, what is it about them, just to kind of get a feel of what they may say. And sometimes, you know, you'll get an honest answer. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Good stuff, E.
You know, I wonder if their conversation had anything to do with the reason why she's coming off that way. Because me and a friend of mine, female from my local, we had a little conversation a lot too long ago about, you know, having that conversation when you come home from work. You know, like they may work in an office, we work in construction. So my conversation of my daily day-to-day problems and goings and, you know, stories may not reach the level, you know, that person may not understand each other's plight. It's like, okay, you may be in you know, you're in an office, you have to deal with management, or you are a manager and you're doing your day-to-day dealings are very different than mine. So the conversation may be so abstract to each other that maybe that's the reason why that, you know, you pull that independent and confident thing, because it's like the other person may not be just as interested in your conversation, your dealings, than the other. Because I know a lot of times I never talked about my job when I came home, because it's like, what do you want to understand about me, you know, wiring up some lights and some stuff? You don't know. That's why y'all always call somebody to do it for you. So it's like my conversation is going to be very different. But like me and my friend, you know, me and her can have all these conversations about what on with the job and how the dudes was acting and this and that. She understands. I understand.
Right.
But I mean, even if I had the conversation with you fellas, you know, I'm not to say it would go over your head, but it would go over your head.
I got you.
Yeah, I think it's, you know, it's a lot of right stuff in what you said. You know, there's a lot of nuances in relationships, you know, and one of the things, if you are looking to connect with somebody that is totally different from you, you know, they say opposites attract, but, you know, it's 50-50.
Right.
You know, both of us got to be open into, you have an open mind into the other person's life.
Yeah.
You know, that's just something that it shouldn't be, you know, we're so close to the fact that we don't want to divulge, you know, our day to day. If I'm asking, you know, certain things about, you know, your career and certain things about, you know, how you're handling or managing certain things on your job, that means I really want to know, you know, so, you know, break it down, you know, share that information. I think we got to be open to the fact that people are interested in us. You know what I'm saying? Interested in you and want to know. And we shouldn't be so closed off that we don't want to share even the small nuances of our day-to-day living, or different facets of our life. That's the only way that we're going to know if that person is indeed somebody that we're compatible with.
Yeah. That's a good way to look at it. I'm gonna read these last two. But as your partner, I'd be interested in listening. I'd be interested to listen. Doesn't mean I'll understand, but because it's important to you, it's important to me.
I feel the same way.
Yeah,
Good
yeah.
stuff.
And the last one is it might be her approach, tone, and delivery while dating, but it could also be she hasn't met the right guy yet.
Mm-hmm. Good
Trey,
stuff.
knowing
Good
Trey
stuff.
probably said, "Yo, she probably really meant yo."
Yeah.
She probably really meant yo. Thank everybody for joining us tonight
Yes, sir.
on Just Our Thoughts with the Fellas. We appreciate you joining us with Dr. Kia Everett to have a conversation about grief, the last act of love going into the season. If you can, and you know someone that may be um, going through some emotions of a lost one, if you can just be there, to listen. Oftentimes, we say, let me know when you need me. What do you need? Sometimes just switch that around and just be there. Just show up.
Or go
Just
to hell home when they tell you to.
or like Ward said, go home when they tell you to. But sometimes just showing up and just being there, not having them say what they need, because oftentimes, like Dr. Kia said,
They
that
won't.
the individual is in a fog, so they may not be able to think clearly on what it is that they need. So take some food by, take some water by, be kind, and just show up. Send them a random text, or or just give them a phone call just to know that you're being thought about. I think would go far. So we want to thank everybody for joining us. Check our platforms out, share our platforms out, and continue to have a blessed week. We appreciate y'all, guys. This is Keith Ward, Professor Kevy Kev, and E Dub Capital. This is Just Our Thoughts. Peace.
Please.
Peace.